All right, buddy. Welcome.
How you doing?
Thanks for coming.
No problem.
I was just telling you, usually I start off by saying, like, introduce yourself, what's your name, how many kids you have, and what do you do?
Yeah.
But this is like a blast from the past, and I kind of want to understand, when did we meet?
So I think it was through Monaco.
I have a recollection of when we met, but just the last memory of us was you guys were doing Lot 332.
Right.
And Monaco was at Menage. And I don't really know how much we talked before, but you guys were going to be the first ones to give me an opportunity to DJ.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to DJ. And then I got a call from Monaco saying, buddy, don't you dare go to Lot 332. You can't do that.
It was a big deal. I remember, with Lot 332, we were, for the most part, I think I spent most of my time with Monaco and at Menage, right? But there was a brief period there where we went to Lot 332.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, it didn't feel right. With Benny, Gail, all the other guys that were at Menage, we just ended up kind of going in that direction anyways, right? And Delirious was there with us too.
Yeah.
But I think we met through, I think it was through the Wednesday night battles, the Friday night battles. We were promoting different nights at Menage too. We had Friday nights. So it was quite the time.
What else did you do? Like, I know you promoted, what are the venues you did?
So the very first venue we ever did was Tonic.
Cool.
And that was in Toronto, right? We did Club Phoenix in London prior to that. And that was the first time that I actually met Delirious at that point too, right? We hired him as a DJ. I didn't know him prior to that. I knew him I was a big fan, right? So I was like a little schoolgirl when I met the guy for the first time. But we connected through a mutual friend of ours, Andrew Kim. And at that time, me and Andrew were working for another promotion company. And we said, look, we had enough followers, we figured we could, break off and kind of do our own thing. So that's the direction we wanted to go in. And we said, we're not going to touch Toronto, just out of respect for the guys that we were working with at the time. So we went to London, and Andrew was actually living there at the time. And he says, look, I know the owner from Club Phoenix. Why don't we get together with them and see if they'll give us a night? So we were excited, right? We set it all up. And we hired Delirious, and honestly, the very first party, it was a bomb. It was horrible.
Oh, come on.
Oh, no, dude. This was something else, right? I couldn't even, it was something at the time where we just figured we knew enough people that we could pack the place, and the place, I think, fit 1,000 people.
That's a big space to fill.
Yeah, and, our first time going off, we didn't know the difference between a big space or a small space or anything like that. So we took it on, and we had maybe 150, 200 people show up, right? People coming through the doors. It always kind of looked empty. We roped off a lot of areas, right? We just had to make it look good. So that was the first experience. And then we came to Toronto, and it was better just because the following was there from us, right? So we did Tonic. I can't remember if there was another one.
Mansion.
We did Mansion, but that was much later.
Okay.
Yeah, Mansion was much later. And the way we got to Mansion was, I wouldn't say we were the best promoters at the time, but we were hustlers. We went out, we did our job, the old school flyering, hand-to-hand, postering in the middle of the night at 1, 2 in the morning.
Do you remember going to the parking lots and putting the flyers on the cars?
Every single night.
Crazy.
Every single night, man. At the end of the night, I think at the beginning we did it mostly ourselves.
Did you print your own flyers?
We did.
That's sick.
Yeah.
I love that it's kind of still in your blood.
That's how we got into it.
Yeah.
That's how we got into it. So my dad had a print shop. And that's kind of, my background. I'm a third generation printer, and I was working at my dad's print shop at the time. And there was a guy named Dominic Caputi who was
Club Scene,
right?
I love him, man.
So Dominic was printing at my dad's shop, and I remember creating the plates for the printing presses, right? And I would see all these flyers, and Dom was doing something at the time that not a lot of people were doing, and it was gang runs. So gang runs were taking several different nightclubs, putting all their flyers onto, let's say, one sheet, and then printing, 2,500 of that sheet. So you're able to split up your costs, right? Because it's one run for you, but really you've got 7 or 8 different clients that you're printing for at the same time. So I'd see all these, girls and parties and DJs and flyers, and I was like, what is this, man? I was really interested in it. So I started talking with Dom, and I remember Dom saying, listen, I'll kind of show you what it's about, but you have to show me your grades in school and make sure you're doing your part, and I'll take care of you. And if your dad's okay with it, sure, you can do it. So that's how I started. I started promoting for Club Scene.
That's
and
crazy.
We were doing Palazzo.
Can I just say Dom was the first person to let, when we had clubbing with us, be part of Palazzo. We were the first company for all ages to be able to take a camera into Palazzo and take photos for him.
Really?
And because he never let anybody in, and he let us. And I still have the flyer where we have our logo on it. So shout out to Dom, man. He was awesome.
Yeah.
Guy.
Oh, listen, I'll say this. Me and Dom had a period where, you know, my stupidity, I was a young guy. I was full of myself, trying to prove myself, try to do everything. And really, he showed me the ropes in the promoting business, right? So, you know, bygones be bygones, but I was young and stupid, let's say, at the time, the way I approached the situation. But yes, he did a lot for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have done half the things I did in the nightclub industry if it wasn't learning from him and just watching what he was doing. And I remember the nights when, you know, I used to drive up with him to the club when he was doing, was it Minx at the time, or I can't even remember what
He
the
did a
name
lot.
was.
He did Level.
He did Level. He did a ton of clubs.
He was
right?
like the king of downtown at one point.
He did quite a bit
You
of
guys
all
did
ages.
Boulevard Room. Remember Boulevard Room?
Boulevard Room, but that wasn't. It wasn't with Dom at the time. That was when Igel and Moise owned it.
Sure.
And Moise brought us over there when he had started Mansion. And we kind of did one night, but we were more focused on Mansion than anything else, right?
it.
So it was like, yeah, I worked, out of all the people that I worked for, Moise, I think I worked for the longest.
Wow.
And him and his brother, you know, they were good business people, very good business people. They knew what to do. They respected more people that hustled than people that, you know, just had a falling and were maybe a little bit arrogant about it, right? They wanted the worker. They wanted the guy who was going to hustle, and that's kind of why they took us on. So
I have too many stories of that, man.
yeah.
You guys got me to DJ there for a New Year's Eve event, but you were not there.
Okay.
Man, it was like 4 a.m. and then 4:30, and I still didn't get paid. And then Moise comes to me and he's like, "Just come back tomorrow." And I'm like, "Buddy, I've been waiting here since like 2:30. I'm getting paid today, or like say goodbye to one of your CDJs." So I remember that time very vividly.
Yeah, it was. Listen, Mansion was. That was a party and a half. That was a big nightclub. I think it was very successful.
Yeah.
We had a lot of good memories.
You guys had Jersey Shore there.
Yeah, we did.
That was cool.
Yeah, and that was actually booked by Mickey.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Manish.
Mickey actually booked it. I think was it called Splash Bar upstairs? Or Wet Bar?
Wet Bar.
It was Wet Bar,
Damn.
right?
That was a throwback.
So the rooftop was Wet Bar.
That was cool.
And I remember Mickey had hired Jersey Shore. And I'll tell you a funny story about this. So we get a phone call from Moise, and Moise goes, "Yeah, listen, Boris, Delirious, we're gonna hire Jersey Shore." Me and Delirious were like, "The Jersey Boys? Like who? What are you talking about, man?" And this show hadn't have even come out at the time.
Yeah.
Right. So this was something that Mickey was already booking, thinking that this is going to be huge, right? But MTV hadn't have released it yet. So it did get released, and of course you saw the success of it and what had
wild,
happened.
Man.
And I remember, I don't know if it was like a week before or 2 weeks before, something had happened where the agents or MTV or somebody had called and said, "Listen, you know, the price or whatever you guys paid for wasn't enough. You got to pay more because these guys were such a hit."
Crazy.
And I remember Moise and Mickey just going into a shit fit over what had happened, right? And then it was a question of, are they going to show up? Are they not going to show up? They did end up showing up,
I
right?
remember.
And it was live tear with Monaco.
I remember.
And Monaco put them on the air as well, I believe. I think he
Yeah.
brought them downstairs from Wet Bar. But that was all Mickey's doing. That was his genius mind thinking of, these guys are going to be a hit before the show was even on TV.
That's
I think
crazy.
So. Yeah. Some wild times, man.
Not to hijack the convo, but it's funny. Ronnie started following Daddy Day Club.
Is that
Just
right?
last week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Crazy. The guy's got like 3+ million followers. And when I saw it, I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Nice.
So we'll see if we get the whole Jersey crew.
Nice. It's you know, the brand itself, it's authentic. And I think that that's what people resonate with it. It's one of those things that, you know, you think about yourself, you think about as a guy, as, you know, going through fatherhood, going through all this stuff. And when you really started off, you really don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what you expect. You don't know what you're going to get, right?
Totally.
And there was no avenue, you know, I think I kind of spoke with you about this. There was no avenue for me to think about going down a certain path to say, yeah, I can talk to these people and see what it's like to be a father, first time, second time, whatever it is. So when you came out with the brand, I said, this is really cool, because if I had something like this at that moment, I might not have even gotten out of the nightclubs.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about that afterwards. I'm like, I always said to myself, oh my God, growing up in nightclubs, doing the nightclub thing, is it right to have a family, 4 o'clock in the morning, cashing out all this stuff, you got kids and everything. And I always just said, no, man, this isn't the lifestyle I want. I don't want it for my kids, right? It's a different story for everybody else. If you can do it, amazing, man. But I felt like it wasn't the right path for the family. But then afterwards, when I saw your brand, I started thinking to myself, why did I think like that? Why wasn't I more open-minded about it, about saying, maybe there is a compromise.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe there's a compromise of what you want to do and what your wife agrees with and the type of family you guys want to have together and all this stuff. So that's where I said to myself, I'm like, yeah, this is authentic. This is something that people want to talk about. This is something that guys want to talk about.
Yeah, man.
And like I said, there's no other avenue to go down. There's no other avenue that I know of, at least, that spoke to me in that sense, right? And then I got the box from your little daughter, right? And I didn't even, to be honest, I didn't even care what was inside of the box. I saw the box and just thinking about my daughter, I'm like, this is awesome, dude.
That wasn't set up. Like, we don't do that for everybody, but she just started going like,
oh, so that was the one.
Yeah, that was the one time she started drawing on the shipping box,
right?
Just coloring on it, and so when Boris got it, it was decorated a little bit.
We
usually keep them plain on the outside, but
so it's a 1-of-1.
That was 1-on-1. Baby.
So I got the box at home,
and
I showed it to my wife too, and she thought it was so cool too, right? Man. So I like to give my daughter things and activities like that as well, right? So
one of my ideas was to have like an actual Daddy Day Club box, but instead of color, just have the outline and let them color it in.
Oh, nice.
So that I might do something like that. But since we kind of transitioned, maybe introduce yourself.
Yeah.
What do you do? How many kids do you have?
So I got 2 kids. I grew up in Croatia as a child. I was actually born in Croatia. I moved to Canada when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I do printing for most of my life, right? Commercial printing was what I grew up in. My father was a printer. My grandfather was a printer. My grandfather more so back in Macedonia. My dad, same thing. But then when he moved to Canada, that was kind of his dream of what he wanted to do, right? He had the whole, I want to go to the U.S. and own a Cadillac and have a print shop, mentality. Cool. Seeing everything back home in Yugoslavia and everything on television at the time, it was the thing to do, right? Everybody wanted to do that. So he actually ended up in the States, and he didn't like it for whatever reasons, personally. And he ends up going to Canada, and that's where he settled. And then me and my mom came a little bit afterwards. And then I grew up most of my life in Etobicoke and in Oakville. So pretty normal childhood. I wouldn't say that we were deprived of anything or anything like that, right? My parents worked a hell of a lot. My mother was here not really knowing the language or anything like that, not even driving or having a driver's license for most of the time. So she was raising 3 kids, me, my brother, and my sister. And there was a big age gap between me and my brother. So I was born back home, right? He was born here. So it's about 6 years difference between me and him, and then 8 years between me and my sister.
I never even knew you had siblings.
Yeah, I do.
Crazy.
I do. Yeah, both younger.
And that's why I kind of like this podcast, because I know fatherhood and like parenthood is hard, and we don't have really time to kind of shoot the shit for so long. But man, I've known you for like probably 15 years, and I never knew you had like siblings.
It's the small stuff that we miss sometimes,
man,
right?
Totally. So that's why I like to connect like this and kind of catch up.
Yeah. It was, I do. I love my siblings very much. I'll say that me and my brother, I don't think we talked as much as we should have growing up.
Yeah.
But for everybody, it's a different lifestyle, right? It's a different growing up. It's different means, different circumstances for everybody. Our parents did work quite a bit, like I said, right? My dad was at the print shop all the time, trying to build for us, build for everybody. There was good times, there was bad times. I remember times when they would pay off their credit cards to their employees, right? But they never missed a beat on paying somebody who worked for them.
Yeah.
And they, I think, instilled that mentality into me, my brother, and my sister very well. I think we all work hard. I think we all strive for the best. We're not perfect people by any means, right? We've got our issues and everything like that. But I think at the end of the day, all 3 of us are good people and finding our way in
Totally.
life, right? So that was kind of my childhood. And then as I grew up, I got into the nightclubs. I kind of told the story a little bit there about seeing it, in my dad's print shop, and then starting off in Palazzo and doing all ages clubs. And I was promoting in my high school, right? Just giving out VIP passes and all the little postcards we would make and all that stuff, right? And it was good, man. We made we made good money. We had a lot of fun, right? And that's, Palazzo was the first time that I found this passion for nightclubs. That's when it hit me. And Ziad, I'll tell you a funny story, man. I remember walking into the nightclub the first time ever, right? And Palazzo was massive. Did you ever get a chance to go there?
The one in Vaughan?
Yeah.
All the time.
Okay.
I loved it. It was like a castle, man.
Like 4 or 5 rooms,
And it would be
4,000
rammed.
people, rammed.
Totally.
Just crazy. The light show inside,
Yeah.
the music. It was insane, right? I have never been to another nightclub that was like that, ever.
It was
whether it was
special.
all ages, whether it was 19 plus, it didn't matter.
was
That club
special.
was something else, right? So I remember walking in there, and I remember getting on the phone with my mom at the time, right? And I'm like, and I just called my mom, and I just said to her, I'm like, you will not believe this place. I've never been somewhere like this. The lighting, the atmosphere, but more than anything else, it was the feeling of whatever was outside of those doors, it didn't matter anymore.
Sure.
It was gone, right? This
Totally.
was a whole new world that you just entered. It was a world of forgetting about your problems. It was a world of meeting up with your friends and not having a care in the world, right? Blowing money that you don't have.
Totally, yeah.
You don't care, man, right? You were wearing the nicest clothes.
Yeah.
It was a feel good time. And as a young teenager, what do you care about, man? You don't care about anything. You're out there, right? Even now, looking back on it, it's like, my God, the freedom I had at that time, right? So I remember that moment so distinctly, and that carried me, I think, for the next 12 to 15 years of wanting to get into the nightclubs and things like that. And my dad ended up selling his print shop. He, I think, wanted to keep it,
Yeah.
but commercial print was changing. There was commercial printers on every corner, everywhere. Like everybody was just cutting everybody else's throat. Cheaper prices. He was getting quotes, I remember at the time, that he couldn't even turn on the press for that price.
I didn't know that it cost so much to actually turn it on.
It's crazy.
Moy Design told me it cost them $1,000 per hour just to
Yes.
have the machine on.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. I think people take it for granted. I think because we live, especially today, in such a digital world, that we think that digital is expensive. The technology, all this stuff, you want to pay for ads online. None of this stuff is cheap. I don't think you realize how expensive it also is to print, packaging, commercial printing. It doesn't matter. People who think that print is dead, you're absolutely wrong. Walk into any store, look around you, everything is printed. It's not digitized. There are no screens, right? Yeah, you'll see screens here and there. You'll see cool technology come up, but 80% of what's inside of that store is still printed. The banners, the floors, the products on the shelves, the shelf tags themselves, right? Everything is still printed. And it's expensive to do that. Ink on paper is expensive. Ink is the most expensive liquid in the world.
That's crazy.
That's the bottom line. It's the most expensive liquid in the world. And when you start to realize, when you get into the business like this and you start to realize how much it is, you start to have a respect for it.
Yeah.
So you can understand the struggles when tons of competition is out there, and the market shifts at all times, right? From year to year, from decade to decade, generation to generation, it doesn't matter. It's constantly shifting. So it was at a point in the 90s where commercial print was just blowing up and everybody was just making it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, to the point that, if you could sell, great. And if you couldn't, you just try to hang in there. And they started to disappear eventually, right? But you had to hang in there. So my dad ended up selling. He sold to the Toronto Star.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, he was very successful in the end. And at that point in my life, I was doing the nightclubs, the all ages stuff. And I had finished high school and I went to college at Sheridan, and I completely, just tore that apart.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't going to class.
I hear you, man.
I was playing jits every single day, like in the cafeteria and the pubs and all this stuff. So I did that probably for like 2 years, and I never graduated, right? I finished my courses and all this stuff, but never fully graduated.
I dropped out of college 5 times.
So you did it too.
Once I went, first day I said I'm not doing this, and
Yeah. It's
I
not
know-
for everybody.
It's not for everybody. I ended up last year going back and getting my degree,
Right.
But which was like a pretty proud moment. But it's not
Congrats,
for everybody.
man. Good
Thanks,
for you.
man. Yeah, it was
Good for you.
very hard
And
to
I-
do
and
it.
it-
While
I
having a
appreciate
kid.
it now.
Totally.
I appreciate it now.
Yeah.
I appreciate it now. The people who have their diplomas, I look at my wife, I look at people who have done that. It's not, I don't want to. Okay, I'm going to say this.
It's testing out your ability to finish something, and actually, it's useless.
Correct.
And it didn't teach me jack shit, but it taught me how to manage all the work they gave me, and not to. Man, I would like come home crying, dude.
Yeah.
Many times, and my wife's like, "You can do it. You can do it. Trust me."
It ain't easy.
It was the hardest thing I had to do, and being we did it during COVID. Partially, had a kid in a 1-bedroom apartment. Like it was just the fucking worst ever.
Yeah,
It's brutal. So
it's a lot. No, I have an immense amount of respect for that now, right? Going back and getting your diploma, I would love to go back to school now and get something else, right? I'm very fortunate at what I do in sales, right?
So where do you work?
So I work for Hycon Systems.
Okay.
They are a technology company. At the end of the day, that's what the bread and butter is.
Okay.
They have created a system that uses digital laser die cutting and digital creasing. And why that's so revolutionary is that the old way of die cutting any products, whether it's commercial print or packaging, you used to have to make a die, right? So it's a piece of wood with rules on it, steel and knives and things. So what happens is you would put it inside of a flatbed die cutter, and it'll basically punch it. Every single time the sheet comes in, it'll punch it to the shape that you want it. That's a flatbed. There's also rotary die cutters, right? And other types as well. But they all work in the same sense that you need to have a die made. And that takes skill. Okay. There's die makers out there in the world that do this. And unfortunately, it's a trade and a skill that's dying out. So it's very hard and it's very expensive sometimes to get these dies made and to wait for them, and your customers waiting and all this. So with laser die cutting, there are no dies. Right? It's all digitized, and it's 3 lasers just cutting it out.
Wow.
It's amazing. And the quality of it is at a point that it competes with mainstream die cutting, the analog die cutters. Our customers see the same results that they would off of any type of traditional die cutter. So when you start to disrupt the market like that, it's not easy. And we still are a startup company. Even though we've been in business for 12 years, we're still a startup company.
So do you sell this laser machine that is it just strictly for die cutting?
Correct, yes.
And then printers are your customers, like industrial print companies will buy your machine, cut out the die and use it for their printing?
Right. So the person or the business that would purchase our machines are the printers.
Okay.
Not so much the print suppliers, meaning the guys who are making the print machines, not them as much, but it's the people who are using their machines. So it's all the guys that you go to, for your packaging.
So what are they cutting? Are they cutting out the shape of the box? Or
they are.
That's what they're cutting out?
Correct.
Using your technology?
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's got front end is a traditional feeder. It feeds it inside. It goes through a cylinder that has digital crease on it. That crease is what puts the crease lines. So the crease lines are what bends your flaps, right, to put the box all together. So once it goes through there, it gives it the crease lines. It goes into a chamber where the 3 lasers cut it out, and then you have a finished product in the end.
Wild.
Yeah. So the technology it's pretty high up there.
And it doesn't matter what material they use, because that die could be used for any material?
It depends. Each die is made for... It's depending on the type of materials they use. Okay. We choose to do monomaterial, meaning that we only deal with paper.
Cool.
We don't want to deal with plastics or foams or anything like that.
Got it.
Just the factor of the sustainability too, right? Cool. For the earth, we don't want to get into the plastics or anything. Of course. Like there's a purpose and a place for it. I'm not one of those guys that thinks that plastic should be eliminated completely or anything like that. There's a responsible way of using plastics and things like that as well. So there is a place for that, but more and more so, sure, we got to get away from it.
Well, that's cool, man. Good for you. So kind of getting like fatherhood, like what does your day-to-day look like having 2 kids?
Oh, man. My day-to-day.
Yeah, like I need to know, because just for me to say, like, am I crazy? Like, am I losing my mind? Because I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. I feel like every day is Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
When I had 1, I thought it was really hard. Really hard. Probably the same thing you're feeling. When I had 2, 1 is...
Piece of cake?
Piece of cake.
Because now
you have something to compare to.
Yeah.
You have something to compare to. So when you have 2, you're 1-to-1. Your wife handles 1, you handle 1. That's ultimately what it should look like. It's not always like that. but it's a little bit more difficult. When you have one, there's two of you that you can try to split the time, even though that's joke to say as well, right? Because
Sure.
you see how busy life is.
Yeah.
I think parents who do it really well are on a schedule.
Yeah.
I think that's the secret. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not on a schedule.
Does your wife work?
She does.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're both working.
We both
you
work and we both work full time.
Okay.
We are privileged, Z, I'll say, in the fact that we get to spend a lot of time at home.
Okay.
I work from home.
Amazing.
I do travel, not as much as I used to travel for some other corporate companies that I worked for prior to HighCon, but I do get to spend a lot of time with my kids at home. And I did when they were younger before they were going to preschool as
Amazing.
well. Yeah. My wife had the privilege of taking 3 years off.
Great.
Basically a year and a half for every mat leave. We were fortunate enough to be able to afford it, financially, time-wise, all that. And with COVID happening, I think one of the blessings that happened is I got to spend so much time with my first child, with Ariana, that if COVID didn't happen, I would have probably never spent that time, and I would have never known what I would have missed.
Crazy.
I'm telling you, dude. That's
Yeah.
the one thing that I can say, and I bitch about COVID all the time, and being isolated and all this shit, but whatever. The biggest blessing that it was I got to see my child grow for every minute, and I got to realize how quickly things change.
Crazy.
From 1 minute to an hour to a day to a week. It's incredible how much they grow at those early stages.
Don't you sometimes look at them and say, like, I have these moments that I document now.
Yeah.
I'm like, you look different than yesterday. It's
Every
like,
time.
It's wild.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
How old's Ariana?
So Ariana just turned 4 in March.
Okay, so 1 year gap between Sophia and me. So
Yeah.
because Sophia's a COVID baby,
Yeah.
so that's crazy. And
So I went through the same
Yeah.
things you guys did. Yeah. And it was an experience. And I think honestly, Ziad, I'm going to say this. I think that COVID made us stronger parents than people who didn't go through COVID at that time with newborns.
Yeah.
I'm not taking away from any parent at any point. And, it could be the best of times, the worst of times. Raising children is absolutely, one of the hardest things and that you're going to go through in life. But what I can say is because we had nobody to rely on, it was just us.
Yeah.
From not knowing whether I could be in the delivery room
Yeah.
because the shutdown happened literally 2 days before I went in, my wife went into the hospital, to not knowing, are we going to be able to get our baby checked for hearing? They didn't take them because they didn't want to put all the kids together. We had to stay in the room. You wanted a glass of water, you had to call somebody to bring it. And it was a short period of time that you were there, and then you go home. So you don't get all these primary tests done at that time. So you're already scared. You're like, what's going on here? Then you get home and you can't see. They're like, you got to go see your family doctor, I guess, right? Well, we call the family doctor, like, no way, man.
Online.
We ain't accepting nobody coming in, right? Let's do a video call. So, okay, we do the video call. Everything's great. But now we're sitting there and we're self-diagnosing our child if there's something wrong. And you're a new parent. Your grandparents can't come. My parents couldn't come. Her parents couldn't come because we were all freaked out.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's going on. And it was like one of those things where we went with it, man.
Good for you.
We went with it. And it was tough. It was so difficult. Ariana was really, really tough with sleeping. Really tough. I mean, I'm talking for like 2-3 years, where we had a difficult time with her, getting her to sleep, getting her to stay in bed, getting her to sleep all night, everything like that. So that put a huge strain and toll on me and my wife's relationship, right? You're not getting sleep, man.
Yeah.
You're not doing any of that stuff.
Agitated, just running like
It's wild,
low. Yeah.
right? It's wild. And she was breastfeeding at the time too, right? So this is another thing that any woman has gone through breastfeeding. It's difficult.
Yeah.
That's one thing I think nobody warned us of.
And they're relying on the mother,
Completely.
right? Like there's
Completely.
nothing you can really
the
do.
most the most primal thing ever.
Yeah.
A mother feeding a child, watching the struggle, watching the love that she puts in, no matter how exhausted, how tired she is.
Yeah.
And still she wakes up every 2 hours and still she breastfeeds.
Yeah,
And it's
man.
like, how do you do it? I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm like a baby.
I
Dude,
bitch
I'm
so
curled
much.
up. I'm like
and they
dying.
and they carried her
Yeah, yeah.
for like 8-9 months.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I can't even say jack
Right?
shit.
Right. So you're sitting there and you're watching all this. And again, I wouldn't have known the struggle my wife went through if I hadn't have seen all that.
Yeah.
So it was difficult, man. And that scarred me. I can't even tell you how much it scarred me.
Yeah.
I love my daughter to death. And I mean, she is the greatest thing that I have in the world. And my son is the greatest thing I have in the world. But I literally have PTSD from that point. And I said to my wife, I'm like, I don't know if this is selfish of me to say, but I am not a newborn phase guy.
Yeah.
It was really hard.
Yeah.
I wanted a second kid.
Why?
So maybe it's because I have a brother and a sister. And watching my daughter when she was growing up, I saw her always like playing there, and we would play with her and everything. And we gave her a lot of space to play on her own too, right? But we always had this feeling, and I think it really is a feeling between, you and your wife. You guys kind of have to feel that out for yourselves. But we were like watching it. We got this feeling that she needs a sibling. She needs a sibling. She needs somebody to play with. I think she would be a great sister. And having a daughter first, I think, was also a blessing for me. Because, as a guy, you always want a guy first. But when I had a daughter, I was ready to have another one, man.
Next level.
I was ready to have another
Girl
one.
dad right here.
Yeah,
100%. Did we get you a girl dad shirt?
I don't know.
This one?
I got the rosé. The pink one.
I want to hook you up.
Are you kidding?
Yeah,
Another one?
Because we're sold out, but we're redoing them.
Yeah.
And we'll get you one.
Dude.
Make it official.
I'm a walking billboard for
That's it,
Daddy
baby.
Daycare.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so keep going.
So those periods of time were really hard for us, and we got through it. But like I said, I think it made us a lot stronger, and I think it's our generation going through something like that. I think it was important that we went through some hardships because we have too good of a life. See, we do.
We're spoiled.
We're absolutely spoiled. We don't worry about the power going out. We don't worry about no heating or AC or anything like that. We don't do that. Right? You go to other countries, dude, they're having power outages every day. Yeah. I'm not talking about war. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about a regular country that just loses power every day, and their people are used to it. If it were to happen to us here, I don't know how many of us would survive. It's a tough thing, right? These are they're beautiful things that we have, and I think that we should never take for granted. So having a little bit of hardship is not a bad thing to grow as people, right? It's like that old saying that bad times create hard people create good times create good people create hard times. It really is like that, because when you have it too good, you start to, swing the other way again. You lose sense of it. So, not to keep talking about this, but I'm proud that we went through those moments as parents and got to where we are today.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. We're not gonna have a second kid. Like, you need. First of all, we're very involved. Like,
good.
And you need you have 5 nieces. We'll get you entertained, man. Because having a second,
you got enough.
I can't imagine. We live in a 1+ den.
Yeah.
Sneaking out at night to go DJ.
Yeah.
Coming back in like the
noise, the tiptoeing.
It's wild. And just the emotional capital. Forget everything else. Forget finances.
Yeah.
The emotional capital. Because even now, sometimes I feel guilty. Like, and I spend a lot of time with her. But you're fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm fucking
all the
fried.
Time. All the time.
And it's like not even 10 o'clock a.m. yet.
Yeah.
Like, before I go to work, I'm fucking fried, man. We wake up at 6:30 a.m. It's like a fucking shit show. Just trying to get everybody ready. I can't imagine having to get 2 kids ready and both of them doing wild things, man.
Yeah. And they feed off of each other.
I can't imagine.
And to each their own, though, Zia, too. I would never tell somebody to have more kids, to have less kids.
Yeah.
You brought up a good point there. You said, I got a lot of, nieces and nephews and family and this and that. We don't.
Okay.
And I think that was another reason. We lost some family members, to cancer and things like that. And I think that kind of stuck with my wife as well. So I think, having 2, we talk about 3 now, and the same way you're talking about a second is how we're talking about a third. And it's because it's tough.
I think Bruno or Benny just said, after 2, it's a piece of cake, man. Just go for it.
You keep going. At that point, you keep going, dude. You're set.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I would love to actually have a big family. I love family. Like, my parents, we have Sunday lunch every Sunday. I have brother and sister, and I don't know what I would do without them. I'm the youngest, so they spoiled me to death.
Yeah.
And I would love that, but I can't imagine, man.
I know.
You know what I mean? It is very hard. And we didn't even touch on the finances of it. Even
it costs money, man.
And you feel guilty, like, will I leave? And it's funny, Benny was like, don't overthink about what you're gonna leave your kid behind, because maybe they're gonna be, this is what my dad says, maybe Sophie's gonna be a hipster. She doesn't need shit.
You have no idea.
She'll go, she's good to eat whenever she's given food. Maybe she's not that type where, you're programming in your mind what they need. Like, it's not all about money.
Yeah.
So,
I agree with you. I will say this: the financing. You're right to think about it, man. You're right. It's a major aspect of what you do today. I think a lot of people that just want to bring kids into the world for the sake of having children, it's okay, but you have to understand that finances is part of this world, right?
Yeah.
Again, to each their own. But look at the house prices today.
Man,
Look at university costs.
Totally.
I don't want to have my children not have that ability to own a home, to not be able to go to university because it costs so much money. So these are aspects that you have to think about, right? When we talk about finance, that's what we talk about. We don't talk about toys or clothes. You can wear the same clothes every single day and wash them. That's not a problem. You're talking about that. You're talking about the bigger stuff, the stuff that comes when they're 18.
So what do your parents say? Like, do you ever go to your parents and like talk about your tough times, or they don't take any of that shit?
Yeah. So I think I could go to my parents and talk to them about it, but I don't.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I do. And I think it's because, again, the way we grew up was old school.
Yeah,
man. It was old school European. They went through really hard times. I almost feel bad in that sense, right? It's like
complain to them?
I don't even want to complain to you, right? Because I know what you went through, and I saw what you went through. And as a father now, or as my wife, as a mother, we both see it, and we're like, yeah, this wasn't. And you had 3, so I don't even want to think about what that's like.
And they didn't complain. I feel like
no, I don't think that they ever complained. No, it was their generation.
They were built different.
But they went through certain hard times.
Yeah,
they saw things that we didn't see. At least not yet, maybe, right? Maybe we're going to see it. And we'll see things that they'll never see as well, right? So we'll have a different aspect on life and the teachings and knowledge that we want to give our kids. But at the end of the day, I think life is life. I think it's the same from generation to generation. There's ups, there's downs. I think we're doing a better job today as dads.
For sure.
Yeah, I think we're doing a much better job
More
today
involved,
as dads.
I feel like.
I know everything my kids do. I watch everything my kids do. I want to be part of everything my kids do. I'm not saying that my parents didn't want that. I'm saying that they probably didn't have the knowledge or the time to do that.
Their focus was basically having a roof over our heads.
That's right.
And I think they had more pride in that kind of stuff than whether or not they came to a concert or something.
That's a good point.
Right?
That's a good point. That was their purpose.
Yeah.
That was their purpose. So for us, when we look at our kids and we want to be around them all the time, again, it's a privilege that we get to be around them all the time and spend as much time as we can. But the scheduling, the not having time, the same things repetitive every single day, that's going to drive any human crazy. My wife always says, she's like, it's the best job that you'll never get thanks for.
Or paid.
Or paid.
Yeah,
You'll never get paid for it, man. It's just one of those things.
And I think the one advice I can give to new parents is, it's hard for even us to give advice because we can only give advice to ages, for me, up to 3, because we haven't experienced the reward of what it's going to be like. I can only imagine when she's 20 years old, it's going to be wild.
I agree.
Like, she's a woman and even older. So that's why I'm not judging parenthood as much as I was before. Before I was really having a hard time. I was like, this is fucked. This is crazy. But she's fucking 3. Take a chill pill. Things will get better. You'll experience different things. So that's why I try to just give advice until the ages of 3.
I agree.
One piece of advice: if you're gonna buy a water bottle, get the same color, because at 2 a.m. she's gonna be yelling for the other color water bottle.
That's right.
I'm telling you, I go through that and I'm like, fuck.
Isn't it funny how they fixate on the smallest of things?
And that's what drives me ballistic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You have to adapt to them.
Yeah.
I never wanted to make my kids me.
Yeah.
I thought that was such an important rule for myself. I said, I do not want them to be like me. I want them to be who they're going to be.
Yeah.
Me and my wife were watching this really, really interesting psychiatrist. He was talking about how arrogant we are as parents, right? As a human race, how arrogant we are. We think that we're going to mold our kids into what they're going to be and how they're going to be. And to some extent, yeah, sure, you're going to have that ability. But the psychologist was talking about, he goes, you do not understand that they're born with millions of nutrients and all of these things inside of their body and their brain cells and everything that have already been chosen for them of who they're going to be. And you will not change chemistry, biology. You will not change any of these things. These are facts on the earth, right? Of how things work and how life works. You're not going to change them. And that is not your purpose to change them. He said your purpose was more of that of a shepherd. And that's find the grounds that are having the greatest amount of nutrients and grass for them to be able to feed on. Find the grounds that are going to guide them into the right path. Put them onto a path that's going to be the right thing for them, and pick them up at certain moments. But don't be the answer to all of their problems.
Then they won't be able to solve their own.
Then they're never going to get it, man. I think that's what it is. You have to allow your child to really grow into that. And again, we're speaking from a point of view of watching them grow at such an early stage and how they change, right? Everything's a phase. Like you said, you're like, oh my God, she's so picky. Yeah. But then my wife says to me, she's like, Boris, it's a phase. Yeah. It's a phase. And next week, it's going to be something different. The blankie or the whatever, or the toy.
And when they're older, man, we're going to have other issues like they're dating. I don't even want to even think of that.
You don't want to get
phase, man.
No.
Right?
No. And wrongfully so, we find ourselves wishing the days away.
Yeah.
Right? I can't wait till 7 o'clock when they go to bed because it's been frustrating all day. They're running around. They're driving me nuts. And we try to remind ourselves as much as we can, especially my wife. I'm horrible at it. She's a lot better at it than I am. That don't wish these days away because you probably will regret it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know that. I've never lived through that, Ziad. We know up till 4 years old, like we're saying here. But we do have, people who are older than us, and they say smart people, do their own thing and go out, but wise people listen to others before they, kind of experiment with these kinds of things. And I think that's true. There's a lot of wisdom in people who have gone through it.
That's true.
Before us. So.
Well, I don't know the stat, and I said it before, but the majority of the time you'll spend with your, let's just say child will be until they're like 12 years old. So embrace it and absorb it now. And I know it's tough, man. For us, it's tough. Yeah. They wake up in the middle of the night and you're just exhausted, but soon enough, they're actually not going to ask for you, not want to be with you. And
it's
not
true.
And
how sad will that be?
That's sad.
How sad will that be, right?
Yeah. And that's why I guess it's important to be a cool parent where you're just not down their throat and give them, and I'm not speaking now, but later on in life where they want to hang out with you. Yeah. That's the goal, right? Yeah. So
you want to have that fine line between friendship and parenthood, right? There is that fine line. And I see, I've seen kind of both ways through other people and just watching and observing and kind of educating myself. You can go too far in both ways. I think I'm more on the strict side. Yeah, I really do. I think I could be a much better friend to my kids, not in the sense of, they don't come running and loving to me and all this stuff. But I feel the guilt, that dad guilt of like, why am I yelling at them all the time? Right? It's like, don't do this, don't do that. It's like, whatever, scratch the wall, break it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
I remember my parents and what they allowed me to do, and I won't even allow half of that stuff with my kids. And so that's where I'm like, all right, you need to chill out, man.
Seriously.
Yeah, you gotta calm down a little bit. And even my wife, she's like, you're not, Boris, you're not being fun today. Yeah. You're not, they don't, let's stop yelling at them for throwing the pizza on the floor, whatever is stupid that they're going to do. Don't. Yeah. Let it be. This is what kids do, right? But I'm that type of person. I'm like, no spaghetti on the face.
I'm with you,
I can't have the yogurt all over you. I can't.
Look at this white shirt.
I can't do it, man.
She was drinking her smoothie beside me, and I'm like, oh God, I can already picture her just.
You know what's gonna happen. Going to happen. And if you're not that type of a person, either is my wife. It's like clean and all this stuff, but we need to work on that. Yeah. We need to let kids be kids.
That's true.
I'll tell you a story. So a couple nights ago, it was a couple nights ago, Friday night. My daughter graduated from preschool.
Congrats.
Yeah,
Oh,
thanks.
that's
And I,
exciting.
you know, my wife's like, oh, I'm going to break down when we were there and all this stuff. I'm like, stop. I was the one who broke down and she didn't even have one tear. She
Oh,
was just so
God.
happy. And I'm the one like crying. My tears are coming in and all this stuff. But no, so after her graduation, her and a couple of her friends and their parents, and we decided to get together and we're going to take the kids out to like dinner.
Cool.
So we went to a restaurant. I'm not going to name the restaurant. They were fantastic. Everything was great, you know, service and all of this stuff. But we had, you know, 5 kids there, right? 3 of them were ages, you know, 4 or older a little bit, right? 4.5 maybe. The other 2 were like 2 years old. So we finished dinner and the kids are running around. What do you expect them to do? And I could tell right away that, you know, the servers and this and that, and everybody was getting like a little bit upset and this and that. And rightfully so, because at certain moments they were going towards the kitchen and they were getting in the way. And I understand all of that, right? But what I don't understand is, when did our culture start believing that children need to be docile wherever they go? I don't understand this. This culture of, oh my God, they're running around. They should be sitting there and quiet and mute and whatever. That's not a kid. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's a dog. You want a dog? You can go buy a dog and you'll have that. But that's not a child. A child runs around, needs to get its energy out. It needs to enjoy its life and forget about all the stupid things that are going on and not be part of any of those things. They need to just be ignorant and blissful and do their thing. And then they're like, oh, it's in our way. And I stopped there and I kind of took in that moment, Ziad, and I said to myself, I'm like, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. And you know, as a parent, you're like, oh, a little bit embarrassed and all that stuff, right? You shouldn't be. Don't be. Go to Europe.
Can I tell you, we still have not gone on a plane because I'm fucking scared.
Neither have we.
I'm scared to death about, she's really good. Sophia's really good, but people are so fucking like aggressive, man. You hear the stories,
That's
like
brutal.
Kids crying on a plane and people just having a shit attack.
Yeah.
I'm very scared.
Why do you even want to be there in those situations? You know what I mean?
At
the end of the
you're
day,
stuck.
You're stuck. And I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be part of, and you know, the plane thing, I don't even think me and my wife considered that aspect of it, but you're absolutely right. That's a huge thing. You see them amongst adults, forget about a kid crying on it. And I take enough flights that I can tell you kids cry on flights all the time. A lot of them are really good too. They just pass right out and they go out. I've never been bothered by one. I don't care. I have kids. I understand it. I'm at that point in my life. I understand if you're older or younger and maybe you don't remember what it's like to have that, or you're younger and you're just naive and you know everything pisses you off. Yeah. It doesn't matter. But as a parent, you know it, right? Somebody who has a child will understand sympathy, empathy, kindness, patience. They'll understand that if they have kids.
Until COVID happened and now nobody has
and now nobody has it. Yeah. It's like it all went to shit and everybody forgot about it. So yeah, it's a big problem. So taking kids on planes, you know, we didn't do it because we didn't know how Ariana was going to be. We didn't know if she was going to sleep or not. Now that we have Adrian's like a little, you know, ball of energy, man. I don't know if I can keep him in a seat for 3 hours.
I've never met anybody else like me who did not take.
Are you kidding? Yeah, really?
Yeah, everyone I know.
So I've done road
done
trips.
it.
I've done road trips.
Road trips different. You control the environment.
Yes. I don't give. Our kids do not watch TV. They do not have iPads. They don't cell phones. Nothing. They don't even ask for them.
I love it.
Okay, my kid. I've asked my children at certain points, and I'm not bragging about this. I'm just saying this is how they turned out to be. They'll ask for a book before they're.
I love it.
Yeah.
Sophia has not seen a screen.
Good for you.
Obviously, we're lucky. Even no ice cream yet. We're gonna do it this year.
Good for you.
Yeah, man. So like
my wife would be so happy to hear this. You have no idea.
So none of that sugar bullshit, and we're slowly just gonna start spoiling her because she eats really well, but screens, no.
That's good. As long as she keeps eating well, let her eat well, right? Because that's
exactly.
You see how it is, man.
She's gonna like why not?
Yeah.
And at least just let her develop yet.
Yeah.
After 2, I think we're just going based on she's still doing it fine, but there's a certain age where they can watch TV, of course, and do all that stuff. So I'm not judging any parent who's letting their kids watch whatever the fuck they want, but I think my wife said before 2, like they're still developing and stuff like that. It's tough. And it's even more tough parenting a kid and not having a screen and throwing there.
It's very difficult.
You know what I mean?
Because you're not taking the easy road out.
Exactly.
And that's what people don't understand is that it's all good and dandy, right? But if you want to go the tough way of raising your children, do it however you want to do it. And believe me, the one thing that I've learned is I will never judge a parent. I don't care whether they give them screens. I don't care. What you need to do to survive as a parent,
you got to do it.
I think sometimes comes first and foremost, because if you're not okay, you're not going to pass that down to your kids.
Totally.
And you don't want to be that person to your kid, right? So I think doing that stuff is really difficult. I've gone on 11-hour road trips with my kids. No, not even once did they ask for the iPad. Good for them.
Amazing.
Not good for us. Good for them.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with, what we're doing or anything like. No, it's the fact that they're training themselves. We're helping them. We're showing them what the right path is. It's not always easy. They scream, they yell like every other child.
Yeah.
My kids are, I think, very well behaved considering, but they're kids, man, and you have to accept that.
Very true. When your kids are sick, who's taking time off? How does it work?
So
let's say just with Ariana, and now it's 2, so it's a different story. But like, how did you guys manage that?
Yeah. So for, I think the first year, because of COVID, we were basically home anyways.
Okay.
So we got lucky in that aspect.
But it's hard, man. I can't even work with even like noise, mind you, still having to entertain a child.
Sure. Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yeah. If the kids are sick, now that we're both back to work, I would say one of us has to just make sure that they're there. And I think that both of our jobs, we're lucky enough to have superiors that, support this.
And that's why it's so important finding
Yes.
a good company culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Who you work for and what they do for you will ultimately, be the end result of how much you give back to that company.
Amazing.
Because if you treat the employees well, they'll give it back to you naturally, not forced, but just give it back to you naturally. And that's what you want.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you guys still go on dates and stuff?
So we talk about this all the time, that we need to date.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
And we should.
Same.
Right? We should. I think it's a huge aspect. And the other part of it is every time we go out, we just talk about the kids.
Yeah.
And that's, a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
But that's us. That's what we do, right? Other parents, I think parents who go out and have time to go out, I think it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah.
And I think you should really prioritize your relationship, right? Because then your kids are gonna. This is what they're looking at as a model. They're looking at us. What are we doing, right? Are we going out? Are we doing it? And even sometimes now, the 1 or 2 times that we've gone and we've explained it to Ariana because she's a little bit older, right? She was happy.
That's nice.
She was happy, man. She was like, all right, mom and dad are, going out. And then of course afterwards when grandma or Nona has to put her down, she's like, I want mommy, I want daddy, right? But at least she's understanding. You have to explain it to them. One level above what they understand. That's what I was told.
Cool.
So that's how we try to explain it to our kids. We take it one level above what we think they understand, because a little bit more every time, the idea is it helps them develop a little bit, right? So, yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I got to go on a date. It's been a while. But you're just exhausted.
All the time.
And especially if you're working and like you have a side hustle, and like I tell this to everybody, like I love Daddy Day Club and I love like what it could be, but if it's going to take away from the mission and you're going to like just neglect your kids and your marriage, it's kind of like tough. Where are you going to find time to like I said, we're exhausted. We want to go out, but we're just tired, and then just coordinating a babysitter is just impossible.
Yeah. We don't even have a babysitter.
We actually don't have one either.
Yeah.
It's my mom.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Jess's mom for us. I mean, she's there quite a bit for us, and her dad as well. My parents live in Oakville, so they're a little bit further away. But we don't, I don't have a babysitter to pay. I wish I did.
Yeah.
But that's, what, Zia, that's life, man. Some of us get these opportunities, some of us don't. I think we have to strive to, work better at it. But you are exhausted constantly. I feel you, man. You come home and my wife's like, let's go do this. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Let's go for a walk. And it's like, oh, man.
But the thing is, even that luxury of, hey, like, do you want to go for a walk? Well, she's in, like, Sophia's sleeping. You can't do that stuff.
No.
Even working out.
Yeah.
So last time I was here, I was like 205 pounds. And ever since then, I joined like the 5 a.m. club where that's the only time I can work out. I wake up at 4:45
In the morning.
and I either go swim or I go to the gym.
Right.
And I'm fucking exhausted. Like, but when are you going to do it? You're going to go work out after
It's
work?
a sacrifice, man.
It's like brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can find time to go to the gym and to work out, that's great. Because you're right. I do not know how parents do it. If you've got 2 kids at home, you've got schedules, you've got, like you said, one running one way, one running another way. By the time you get through your day at work, by the time you have to go pick up your kids or come home to them, look, you are 100% taking care of another human being.
Yeah.
That is not easy, and you don't realize how
putting
hard
that on my resume on LinkedIn, baby.
right? It's probably the most discipline you will ever get in your life, and the best experience you'll ever get in your life. You know how I always say it? At one point, I was looking at my kids one day. I was sitting on the couch, and they were having fun, like one of the rare moments that they're getting along and like not fighting. And it just kind of came to me. I'm like, it's a privilege.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to watch these kids grow.
That's cool.
That's how I look at parenthood. It's not my God-given right. Anything can happen, God forbid, at any moment. Some people can't even have children, man.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much of a privilege it is to go. And I'm going to say that to my kids at their wedding.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it was an absolute privilege to watch you guys grow up and be the person that you are and strive for the things that you want to strive for.
I dig
You
it.
know?
I like it.
Yeah.
I want to put professional dad in my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to leave you with 2 questions. I ask the same people the same questions every time. First question. If you could have anyone perform at your wedding, who would it be? Dead or alive artist?
Wow. So for music, huh? So you're going to be surprised a little bit. I actually, me and my wife, we listen to a lot of like very classical music too as well. Like we just went to the Andrea Bocelli concert.
Oh, cool.
Not too long ago. My wife he's phenomenal, right? But my wife is a huge fan. So we like stuff like that. And there was a very, very popular singer, Oliver Dragojevic, he's from the Dalmatian coast, or one of the islands, Korčula. And he is like a legend in Croatia, okay? I mean, this guy's songs are, about the country, about love, about your kids, about your wives and affairs and everything, right? Anything you can think of. But his voice was like, they called him like the Tony Bennett of Croatia there. And he passed away from cancer a few years back. I actually got to see him twice. He came to Toronto. I got to meet him backstage once. And if there was anybody else that I could watch like that again, it would be that or Queen.
Cool.
Those would be the 2 for me. Yeah. It would be Oliver or it would be Queen, because those 2, I think the music that they have is, it's timeless, right? It'll be around forever. It'll be around forever. And it's stuff that'll never get old. Never get old.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Last question.
Yeah.
Who could you see sitting in the seat? Like, who would you invite from your circle to be part of the next podcast?
It has to be from my circle?
Yeah. Someone or somebody.
Anybody?
Anybody you know that's a dad.
So, you know who I think would be good for you? Your wife.
Oh my God.
No, man. But let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. Because going back to the theme of authenticity.
Yeah.
There are, I think, a lot of young couples up there where they got 1 child, 2 kids, no kids, maybe just married, thinking about getting married. I think it's important, for us as guys, to get an outside view from somebody who's intimately involved.
Okay.
All right. So you having conversations with your wife, have a candid conversation, something you guys have never talked about, something you would sit at dinner if you planned and say, I want to talk about our lives or something like that. I think people would appreciate listening to you guys go back and forth in your thinking, right? Because your wife is going to think one way as a third eye. I kind of do this in sales too. When I get too caught up into a sale, I like to have my CEO or I like to have my colleague or my manager get involved in it, because they see it from a third point of view. They're not intimately involved like I am, let's say, like fully. They understand it because they're following the deals and everything that I'm doing. So they understand it to that sense intimately, but they're kind of on the outside of all the conversations and everything like that. So when you talk about your experiences, it'll be cool to hear the feedback from your wife's experiences and if she feels the same. And I think maybe you guys will, you'll figure something out amongst yourselves.
I would have never thought
No?
that would be an answer.
I think it's different. I think it's cool.
It's funny because I don't know who said it, but somebody said you have to treat your marriage like a business because, or else it'll just die. You have to plan the things you guys want to do together
Yes.
and plan to grow because without a goal and how to get there, you're just going to be in the same spot.
Yeah. Marriage is a ton of work.
Yeah.
Ton of work. Counseling, therapy, I can tell you right now, go to those things before you need to go to them.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Go to them. There's no shame in going to that stuff. And you will only work on your marriage and strengthen your marriage through that kind of stuff. Because it's tough. And when you get to the point where there's problems already, or you feel, stuff about yourself that you're not comfortable to share with or anything like that, you're going to get to a point where it's going to be too late to talk about it. And you're going to be talking about it in a heated manner.
Sure.
As opposed to approaching it much sooner in life.
Preach, baby.
Yeah.
Boris,
I'll leave you with this. Let me leave you with one
Let's hear
thing.
it.
My wife said to me last night, just on the topic of kids, you'll never regret having a kid, but you will regret not having one.
Wow.
So I don't know if that helps you with your second of what you guys want to do, but it made me think about our third as we were kind of thinking about that. So.
I appreciate you being here today,
Thank
buddy.
you for
and
bringing
thank
me,
you so
man.
much for your help. I've been always bugging you about packaging. This is the packaging
my
guy, the
pleasure.
printer guy. I always ask him for opinion and I value your professional opinion.
I'm always here,
thanks,
man.
buddy.
I'm always here.
Awesome, man. Thanks, Graham. Shout out to Graham for
Yes,
this beautiful studio.
Amazing.
It's wild, man. You
Yeah.
check him out, TorontoPodcast.ca.
It's nice to see something like this in the six, man.
Yeah, I love
It's
it.
really cool.
Yeah, great place, man.
Good stuff.
Sweet. I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.